going to be ready to go. So this class, as I mentioned, is a fairly interactive class. You are going to be involved in a lot of dialogue, debate, reviews. I consider this classroom a structured environment that I call the flipped classroom. And a flipped classroom is one, I don't know, anybody ever experienced a flipped classroom before? You probably have,
No.
but you probably have, but the professor didn't give it a name. So what it is, very simply, is the ability for you to come to class already prepared to have a conversation with me and with your colleagues in class about the material that has been assigned for that evening session. So the flipped classroom is that you do the work of reading and preparing yourself for tonight's class, as an example, and you come to class with an understanding of the material that you've read and that you've basically been assigned to cover, and then we start a conversation about issues, about any of the material that you read didn't make any sense, or is there anything in the material that kind of doesn't jive, it doesn't make any sense, doesn't stick. And what it does, it allows me in this time slot, and we'll talk about 3 hours in a minute, but it allows me in this time slot to basically deal with your concerns about the material, to make sure that there is an understanding of the material, and that I'm not leaving you behind in any of the material that's being covered for the evening. So it's important that you spend the time to read the material. Like, I don't want you to sign up, go into my courses and read the material and do that 45 minutes or half an hour before class starts. That's not going to work. What I typically ask of you to do is probably invest a couple of hours for each class. A couple of hours a day, maybe two, before class, so that you can sit back quietly and read the material and potentially take notes about stuff that you may not feel comfortable with. But to go through the material, so that when you come to class, we're ready as a group to talk about the stuff that you've read about. So it is going to be a fairly interactive class. I'm going to be probably more of a agent provocateur in this one, in terms of getting people to talk about things, about the way in which they interpreted the material I assigned to them. But it really is more about you, talking to the rest of your colleagues in class about how you interpreted the material that has been assigned for you to look at. So that's a flipped classroom environment. It is different. Onus is on you to basically come prepared to class. And if you don't get prepared to come to class, sometimes you'll be in a situation where, I might be calling on you to start a conversation or to talk about what it is that you read and what is it about the stuff that you understood. And I would expect you to basically come prepared to talk to that material. So there is a class participation mark in this course, so that's going to be a function of how well you come prepared to class as well and how you participate. Any questions? So the question process, question and answer process in the class, fairly straightforward. You've always seen the chat button. Hit the chat button if you want to ask a question, or raise your hand. And by raising your hand, I won't immediately stop the conversation. I will stop the conversation at a natural break. Usually, when I lose my breath, I'll probably address the questions that are being raised, or I'll go to the chat. But you probably won't stand